So I was a great swimmer. I grew up on a lake called Smith Lake. If you look it up, the official name is Lewis Clark Smith Lake, and they call it the Bottomless Lake. And there have been legends about giant catfish in this lake that actually ended up being completely true. That's not a legend. In 2021, a boy got thrown off a boat in on Memorial Day, and when they were looking for his body, they confirmed the presence of the giant catfish because what happened was they were supposed to fill the lake up over the course of like 8 to 10 years. There was record rainfall, and it filled up in two. So, in other words, this bottomless lake still has cities, towns, and a whole lot of lumber that the lumber companies were supposed to cut down over the next, say, 6 to 8 years that they never got to. So you're talking about huge pine trees that rotted at the bottom of the lake, became algae, and became pretty much an unlimited source of food for the catfish who were down there. Now, while there are giant catfish, they can't surface. They're so absolutely incredibly massive, and they're so acclimated to the pressure of the water down there that I'm told that to reach the surface, they would literally damage their bodies so bad. So you can still swim in the top of the lake. You really only have to worry if you're 300 or 400 feet below the surface for these things to even be a problem. And then don't forget they're scavengers. These aren't sharks. The one encounter we have where somebody there was a scuba diver looking for a kid's body. He was holding a gigantic flashlight, like a double handled flashlight, and diving straight down, and a catfish sort of locked onto his body, and as soon as he wiggled around a little bit, he spit him out because they're scavengers. They eat dead things. They don't eat live things. They're not predators. Not saying that they wouldn't try if they were really hungry or something, but yes, there are giant catfish. Yes, the lake is known as the bottomless lake. There are parts of the lake that are thousands of feet deep. Scuba divers come to explore it, all of that. I grew up on the lake. So by the time this happens, I'm a very, very strong swimmer. Trigger warning: thalassophobia. If you have any kind of thalassophobia, stop right now because the story I'm about to tell you will be very triggering to anybody with thalassophobia. So I was visiting a girl whose birthday it was on the lake. Now, this girl and her dad had a pontoon boat, and they had like six other little girls. I can't remember if we were 9 or 10 or 11 or somewhere along those ages. These are not lake people. These are city people who come to the lake occasionally. My
Welcome
dad
aboard, Captain.
trusted their parents to take care of us, but her mom wasn't feeling well. And so on this particular occasion, it was just her dad. And I know he was drinking because he had a beer in his hand, and he had all these little crazy girls to deal with, and we're taking turns skiing behind the pontoon boat. Okay, so he's got one of these newfangled pontoon boats that goes way too freaking fast in the first place. He also doesn't have a looker. Okay, this is law. If you are pulling somebody behind a boat in any kind of water sports, you're supposed to have another grown adult sitting in the boat watching the whole time so that they can call out to the driver when someone falls, and the boat can turn around and get them while they're in the water. Obviously, it's incredibly dangerous to leave a swimmer just swimming out in the water on a busy lake, especially on a holiday like Memorial Day or something where there's a lot of people. So on this particular day, not only were there a ton of girls, not only did they not have a looker, not only was this guy drinking, but I was a rebel, and I always felt like I was better in my ski belt because I had more maneuverability. Now, that's a rule too. If you're behind the boat, you always wear a life jacket. If you are doing any kind of water sports, if you are on a jet ski, if you are skiing, hydrosliding, any kind of water sport at all requires a life jacket. And by this age, I definitely knew that, but my dad wasn't there to tell me I had to. So Jesse got on the ski wearing nothing but a ski belt. And here's what happened: I wiped out, lost my ski, and instead of letting go of the rope, I decided to double down and grab the rope with my other hand because I didn't mathematically understand that the force of the boat moving forward how fast that was going to make me dive below the water. And the minute my body went under with the rope, the ski belt just disappeared. It's a belt that goes around your waist, so the force of the water just literally ripped it off my body. And before I could blink, before I could think about anything, I was probably 100 feet below the surface. And I remember that the water got incredibly cold. It got cold and then it got ice cold and then everything was black. And I let go of the rope and I looked up and I immediately knew that I was way too far below the surface because I could barely see any light. I was in pitch black. Both my ears popped so hard in that dive that I had a double ear infection afterwards for like 6 weeks, and I have permanent scar tissue in both of my ears as a result of that dive. But in this moment, I'm in complete and utter blackness. I have no flotation device. I'm over 100 feet from the surface. I start kicking my way to the surface, a panicked, crazed, animal like survival instinct. I am so afraid that I never once looked around me. I never looked in front of me. I never looked next to me. I kept my eyes fixed on the light. And I kicked and I kicked and I kicked and I fought my way up there. And I blacked out right as I came up on the surface. And as I came up and I'm laying there on my back and I'm just trying to catch my breath, this is a trick that my grandfather taught me when I first learned how to swim. If you're drowning, you get on your back and you stop using all your energy. Because I mean, I had no energy left and I knew it. If I didn't know how to get on my back right then, I would have drowned even though I made it to the surface. And I can see her dad's boat looping back around. What I don't know is this is his third lap trying to find me. On the second lap, they found my ski belt, and her dad assumes I am dead. I come their third lap, they find me, and when he pulls me into the boat, he's white as a sheet. And because I broke all these rules, and because I knew if my dad found out that this guy had been so irresponsible, that he didn't have a looker, that he didn't make me wear a life jacket, that he was drinking, I knew he'd never let me go over there again. So I literally never told anybody. I never told anybody that I almost drowned. And because I never looked around me in that blackness, I don't know what was near me. I have this vivid imagination of giant catfishes and all manner of horrific things. I think sometimes if I had done things differently, if I had opened my eyes and looked around me, I may have seen something so scary, so terrifying that I would have tried to scream in the water and I would have drowned instantly. I think there was a reason I had to fix my eyes on that point of light because I don't think that I could have handled what I was in. I don't think I would have been able to deal with it. I think I would have died. And then I think about the fact if it had been any other girl on that boat, they would have died too. Because I was a very strong swimmer. The only reason I survived was because I was a strong swimmer. And somehow this memory scared me so bad that I repressed it and completely forgot that it happened. And then now that it's here, and I remember, I'm starting to realize that sometimes I feel like I'm at the bottom of the lake again. Every now and again, I can blink, and it's like with the borderline splitting, when I split into an episode, it feels like the real me is in that blackness. The real Jessie is in that black water trying to get to the surface, and the borderline is up there in the light, if that makes any sense. I think I have subconsciously gone to that place in the lake many, many times in my head and not known that I was doing it, you know? How much fear must I have felt in the moment that I realized, like so much fear at the bottom of that lake in all that blackness and all that cold, looking up at the light, realizing it's too far, it's too far, it's too far. And there's so much fear that you feel like you can't move. And in the same moment, you realize if I don't move right now, I'm going to die. That is what the split feels like. And that I'm trying to use this memory now as a sort of as therapeutic tool to help myself in a borderline split to come back, because I mean essentially it is fighting for the surface.